In a major key or a minor key, there are diatonic chords that all fit into that major or minor key signature, but to make music more interesting, occasionally we can use borrowed chords. Borrowed chords are chords that maybe come outside of the key signature but still have a relation to that original key. When we look at the triads in a major key, our diatonic chords, we know that this is the pattern of major, minor, and one diminished chords that happen there. And when we think about the parallel minor scale, we're starting on the same starting pitch but a different key signature. Right? So we have to plug in all these flats. We lower the 3rd, 6th, and the 7th to get the natural minor. And we know that that gives us a different pattern of major and minor chords, starting at 1, 2 diminished, 3 major, and all that. The really cool part is that we can borrow some of these chords from the minor key and use them in a major key to create some interesting chord progressions. Let's start off with these minor substitutions that would come in a major key. First up is the 1 chord as an option. Unfortunately, it's not a very good option because 1 is our tonic, it's the home bass, and if we change our home, it really messes with the listeners quite a bit. So this is not something that's really easily done. Of course, you can do whatever you want when you write your songs, but not a lot of composers really do that. Moving to 2, well, 2 is diminished in a minor key, and we know that that diminished chord really wants to resolve up by a half step. Now, that's not a problem in minor because it does resolve up a half step to an E flat if we're thinking in the key of C minor, going up to the relative major of E flat. But in a major key, we would have E natural. So having that diminished 2, it really doesn't want to resolve up to an E natural. So that's not a great option either. Let's skip ahead to 4 because 4 is another root that has not been altered. We've got a minor 4. This one works really awesome. This is a common substitution in a major key for good reason because it's really cool. It's especially useful at the end of a progression, a chord progression. So if you're playing a bunch of chords and you get to a 4 near the end and you make it minor, ooh, it's very cool. This is especially effective when that song is a love song. Well, why? Well, because, all right, on the right here we've got a C major triad doubling at the octave. And if we look at the F minor chord, which would be the minor 4, well, we've got it in second inversion here, so C is the root. From F to E is a half step, 4 down to 3, and then we have another half step from A flat to G. So there's 2 half step motions, and we know that chromatic motion is awesome. Use it whenever possible. So that gives us this sound. If we're in C major, here's C major to F minor, which would be the minor 4, back to C major. We've heard that a lot in pop music and also classical music as well. Those 2 half steps really work nicely. Here's another one, the minor 5. You would think, oh, Mr. Peltz, you're going to alter the dominant. Well, you can. It actually sounds kind of cool, and because it hints at modal harmony, which is really a concept for another day. But if you're curious, that would usually be like a Mixolydian progression, but it's kind of nice. So again, we're in C major to 4, minor 5, back to 1. That's kind of an interesting sound, not too jarring for us. And the rest of the chords are all altered roots, right? Because we lower the 3rd, 6th, and the 7th. So the 3 chord, 6 chord, and the 7th chord will all be different roots, which doesn't seem like you would be able to do that, right? But the nice part about this is that it's all of the major chords in the minor key, and we know that progressions that use all major chords tend to work no matter what. In a major key, of course, those are 1, 4, and 5. If we were going to borrow 3, 6, and 7, that kind of works too. Adding majors, these other majors to the major work nice. But because we've altered the root note, we do have to make a special notation for that, because otherwise we just assume diatonic the diatonic chords in a major key. So to do that, we just call them flats, right? We can still do that. We just call it a flat 3, a flat 6, or a flat 7. And these are really cool sounds to use in progressions. Here's a C major, and then I'm going to play the flat 3, E flat major, then back to 1, which is C major. Okay, we can even go 1, flat 3, 4, and that's another common sound we hear in music. Okay. Here are some other sample progressions here. In the key of F, we've got a tonic triad, F, A, C. We move the C to a D, and we get a 6 chord. Then we've got a 4 chord in root position there, B flat, D, F. We lower the third of that B flat chord to a D flat for a minor 4, and then back to F major. This is what that progression sounds like. Pretty nice progression there, especially that toward the end of a progression, it works really nice. Here's another one. In the concert E flat major, we've got a 1 chord, another 1 chord, and then we see accidentals. Something's awry here. It's D flat, F, A flat, which would be the flat 7 chord. And flat 7 by itself really likes to go to 4 because there's that perfect 4th interval between B flat and the A flat in this example. So for flat 7 down to 4, and then the 4 back to 1 can work quite nicely. That's a common one. Last example I'll give you here is Joy to the World. The piano player that used to work at my church a few years ago would always do this Christmas Eve, and it sounded cool for a while, and it sounded kind of corny after that. We have our 1 chord, bum 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 ba-dum bum 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 bum, all standard diatonic chords until we get to that last note. And instead of playing a 1 chord, 5 going to 1, he would substitute flat 6, then flat 7, then 1. And I'm not sure I can play this right, but I can kind of try to sing it. Bum 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 bum. Sorry, let's try that again. Bum 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 ba-dum bum 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 bum. Interesting. Sorry about the bad singing, but you get the idea. You've heard that kind of corny sound before, but it's actually kind of cool at times. Major substitutions in a minor key, in my opinion, are less common. I haven't come across these as much, but there are 3 notable exceptions or uses that we do see. First of all is one we already know. To make 5 function in a dominant role in a minor key, we need to make that a major chord. So again, if we were in C minor, adding back our flats into this screen, we would have that G major chord, which would lead us back to 1 or even a G dominant 7. And as well with that, the 7 chord, right, we would make our B flat into a B natural, so 7 would function, leading us up that half step back to C minor, our tonic. Another one that works nicely is a major 4 in a minor key, so just the opposite of the one we talked about before. If we're in C minor, we go up to F major, back to C minor. There's a song called Mad World that uses that. Really cool sound, really moody sound that's very evocative sound, and when you're composing things like that. And again, that's kind of a modal type of a progression. If you're curious as to which mode that is, it would be Dorian. And then the last one, believe it or not, is changing the tonic triad to a major. So if we were in C minor, we would substitute C major. When would that be appropriate to do? It would be on the last chord of a minor piece. This you will hear in Baroque music and classical music as well. They'll be jamming out on a long minor piece, a sonata in Q flat minor or whatever, and when they get to the very last chord, they bust out the major third at the end. And that's actually, the interesting part about that is that there's a title for that. It's called the Picardy third, or as my college professor liked to say, pick any third, because you've got this whole piece in minor, and then at the very last second, the sunshine comes out. Just to give you an example of what that sounds like, I'm going to switch up to F minor here. On that major chord. Again, a kind of a corny sound to us, but a very popular device that's been used in a lot of music throughout the ages. So those are some of the most common chord substitutions. There are way more than that, but those are basically the major and minor ones that you'll come across in a lot of the pop music, praise music that you might come across in your life.